Hello, everyone. This is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects, Go Cloud Careers, and I'm super excited to be coming to you today to talk about nothing else, cloud architect careers or cloud computing careers. So anyway, we come here once or twice a week and we try and do this to answer any type of career questions you have. I remember when I first began my tech career about 20 years ago. I remember it was really exciting times, but I remember there were things that I wanted to learn. There were careers that I wanted to do. And what did I do? I asked a lot of people, and everybody told me to get this certification, this certification, this certification. And you know what I did? I got those certifications. I spent about $20,000 on certification training over the course of a few minutes, over the course of a few weeks and months, I should say. And you know what kind of jobs I got? Absolutely none, until I started speaking to hiring managers, recruiting, finding out exactly what the hiring managers wanted. Once I found out exactly what the hiring managers wanted, I had a list of the perfect employee, and I knew this was the perfect employee, and I knew this was my starting point. I could do a gap analysis and figure out how to become the perfect employee. I did that, and guess what? I got my first network engineer job. And you know what? That's how I went from practicing medicine and moving into tech. And I got to tell you, I've been helping people find their first tech jobs for over 20 years now. And you know what? It's the same process. Tell them exactly what is the job, make that person excellent at the job, package that person up by teaching soft skills, emotional intelligence, interview skills, really making the person expert in terms of technical competency, and poof, they get hired. So it's a secret, it's a recipe we've used forever, and we work really hard to make our people competent, but also packaging them, building the brand. There's so many good things. Well, I see a few people have already joined us. I see Cloud Person, which is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And I see Sandy. So a couple of things that I wanted to let you know. In less than a month, we have a completely free AWS Solution Architect Professional book coming. And guess what? It's not just going to be any book. It's going to take you from I've never heard of tech all the way to being fully capable of passing that Certified Solution Architect Professional exam. We had another book and we loved it and it was good. We added almost close to 300 additional pages to this book, and it's with the editors now, and they promised me that it'll be edited within 2 weeks. So of course, after that's out, we'll spend another 2 weeks, and then we're going to give it to everybody completely free. So, you know, we've got, what do you call it? We've got a website for you guys to sign up, and I'm sure we can post a link to that site so you guys can get signed up. So when the book is ready, you'll be getting it. So super excited for you. So Blasingi, super happy to see you. Dorian Wright, I'm also super happy to see you. So anyway, we are here to answer any questions. This morning, we released a really important video. I'd like to recommend that everybody see it. It's called What Does a Cloud Architect Do? And the reason I popped that there is, you know, there's a massive cloud architect skills mismatch. And we'll be talking about that later, coming soon too, in what employers actually desire and what people are actually studying. And I want you to all know what the hiring manager wants, because if you know what the hiring manager wants, you're going to get hired. So get cloud hired, be what the customer wants. You know what? In sales, if you have the product the customer wants and the price that the customer wants, guess what? They buy it. So you want to get hired. When we get hired, we are what's being sold. You know, when I apply to be a cloud architect, someone's paying me for my services. So if I want my services to get used, and if you want to, if you want your services to be paid for, you build the perfect brand, just like any business. That's why Mercedes got a good brand. Apple's got a good brand. They build the brand, and when you build a strong brand and a good brand, you're worth more, so you're hireable more. So these are the kind of things that we like to talk about. So that's why we're here, to help you build any questions that you can possibly have. So super excited to have you here. So please, by all means, bring in any questions. Now, if you're having a good time, please like and subscribe to the channel, but please see that video today on what does a cloud architect do. So let's go to the first question. The first question looks like it's coming from Dorian Wright. Can I tell us what fintech companies would look for in a cloud security architect? Dorian Wright, absolutely. Most financial organizations are looking for the following. First and foremost, when we're dealing with financial organizations, we're dealing with organizations where seconds matter. In fact, Dorian Wright, when you're dealing with some of these algorithmic trading systems that these big banks have, literally speaking, a nanosecond of competitive advantage could be millions, if not billions of dollars a year. Just literally speaking, a nanosecond. The ability to process a transaction just a nanosecond faster than the competitor. So Dorian, when we're dealing in the fintech industry, here's what we're dealing with. we're typically dealing with people that are really, really good, because when you're getting to the point where you're shaving off nanoseconds, you're not your regular engineers or architects at this point. So this is where your best and brightest is. And in the fintech environment, you will have unlimited budget. Any CPUs you need, any amount of DRAM you need, any kind of GPUs you need to get things done, it doesn't matter. If there's any service you need in finance, it is paid for. So money is no object, but performance is an object. So when you're looking for a cloud security object in finance, you are looking for someone that's got somewhat knowledge of the network, because without knowledge of the network, you're not securing anything. You're looking for someone with deep, deep, deep knowledge of security, the ability to break into systems, the ability to do some social engineering to try and hack into the systems by hacking into the people, the ability to write the policy, the ability to build design. So you're going to be dealing with a very, very, very strong security person. Someone that's played the game, because it's banking, and banking can pay anything for these positions. They can pay you anything. I remember 1 year Goldman Sachs had an average bonus of $600,000. That was just the actual bonus. So the banks can pay anything to the average employee. So just keep that in mind. So if you want to work in a bank, first you're going to have moderate knowledge of the network, then really, really strong knowledge of the cloud. Then you're going to also, if you really want a really great job in the fintech industries, you have to understand the financial industry. What is the industry? How does the industry make its money? What is investment banking versus institutional investing? What is trading? What is being a market maker? What is all of that? What is black box trading systems? How to read a financial statement, et cetera, et cetera. That stuff is going to be really, really, really critical. So you need to know the financial applications, the financial instruments, stocks, bonds, et cetera, financial statements, and the way organizations make money. For example, a lot of these trading systems work on buying and selling. And for example, the way it works, Dorian, like if a bank, let's say a market maker, wants to buy 100,000 shares of Cisco stock, and they buy 100,000 shares, what'll happen in the process of buying 100,000 shares, it's going to raise the price because it's an auction for all these stocks. So Dorian, let's say there's some good news about Cisco, and I have my bank, it's called Mike's Fast Bank, and my Fast Bank can buy 100,000 shares of Cisco prior to everybody else. And as soon as the stock price goes up, and it looks like it peaks, if I can sell it faster than the rest on the way down, because of, say, some negative news, I can make more money by getting out at a higher price. So Dorian, we're dealing with savings of nanoseconds in banking. So they're going to be looking for people that have lots of experience with low latency, lots of experience with incredible redundancy, lots of experience with security, and it will be a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful job with, guess what? Almost unlimited pay. So the point is, you can do a lot of great things in the banking industry, but for banking, you're going to have to be twice as good. You're going to have to be better and faster and stronger. But I got to tell you, I worked on Wall Street for a little while. I designed lots of systems for banks. They have a lot of good benefits to work for them. So I can highly, highly, highly recommend it. So strong, 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 strong. And Dorian, also, when you're dealing with banking, you're dealing with thick skin, because it's a high stress pressure cooker environment and people get nasty when things don't work. So Dorian, if you can be really emotionally intelligent and take all these agitated people and then calm them down and then solve things, you're worth your weight in gold. So that would be my recommendation for you. And I know you're going to do extremely, extremely, extremely well. Now, Chris, if you'd like to bring in the next question. And yes, absolutely. Hit the like button and please answer some questions. Rohit, since the solution architect works with a lot of teams at the same time, how do companies measure the performance of a solution architect? Rohit, that is an extremely great question. And when you are a solutions architect or a sales engineer, et cetera, typically you're gold on two things. You're typically gold on things called measurable business objectives, and you're typically gold on sales. So let's talk about what this is. So let's say you're an architect, you're working for one of these organizations, and you're part of the sales organization, which most people are. And let's say, your salary is XYZ, say $200,000 a year, and your bonus structure is, say, 35%, because that's pretty normal for a solid cloud architect or a solution architect with a couple of years experience that's got good business acumen. So here's what will happen. You'll first be judged on sales, and let's say that's going to be 2/3 of your bonus of that 35%. So if you and your region or your architecture team is supposed to sell $1 billion of tech, and you sell $2 billion of tech, chances are you'll get a $200,000 bonus just from sales. By comparison, if your goal is to sell $1 billion of tech, and if you only sell $500 million of tech, You might only get a $50,000 bonus in addition to your base salary. Now, then there's the measurable business objectives, which are going to be customer satisfaction. Do customers like you? 2, it's going to be professional development. Did you get an MBA? Did you do something that made you better? Maybe you became a Cisco certified internet expert or what have you. Or you became a Cissp because you're a cloud security architect. So there'd be something like that. There's measurable business objectives. Then typically you're going to be gold on giving presentations to a global audience, or you'll typically be gold on papers that you wrote that are good for the business of the organization. So you're going to be doing a whole lot of different stuff. In fact, I'll tell you, as an architect, Rohit, 1 year, I don't think I did anything more than buy lunches and dinners. I'm actually not joking. I swear that 1 year as an architect, what I did is I led a team of 16 engineers. I went in there. Every day we'd walk into a war room. The engineers would help me design the thing. Then they proof of concept it. And you know what I did? I bought them lunches and I bought them dinners and I bought drinks every day to the team that built it. And I did that for a year. And, I remember thinking, like, my manager's going to come look at me and what's he going to say? And I remember my manager came down one day to visit me at the customer site. It was one of the world's largest banks. And my manager shows up and he says, he gets here at like 11:30. I said, Don, I hope you don't mind, but I got to take all the engineers to lunch. He's like, sounds like a good idea. And he's there all day. And it's like 6 o'clock at night. The customer is a little frustrated. They've been a little rough on my staff. And I say, who wants steaks and scotch and wine? And everybody raises their hand and I go there. And I speak to my manager at the end of the night. My manager says, Mike, you're really good. I said, what do you mean? I said, you mean good at buying lunches and dinners? He said, no, Mike. He said, you figured out this whole architecture thing. He said, you go in there, you live at the customer site. You don't even come to the office. I haven't seen you once. You go to the customer site every day. He says, you're embedded in the customer. You even have a desk in the customer site. You walk to the customer, you go to lunch with them, you buy the customer lunch. They tell you everything they want. And I was like, I just want to be with the customer. Why would I go to an office and stare at the walls? And then when my manager saw how I did things and I saw how I took him to dinner and drinks, he said, Mike, he said, you figured it out. I said, figured what out? He said, the key to being an architect is building a team of the best and brightest people and aggregating and leveraging all of them. He said, you've got a voice over IP design. He said, you brought in, one of the best QoS experts in the world. I said, I did. He said, you brought in one of the best voice experts. I said, I did. And he said, you brought in one of the SIP people. And I said, yeah. And he said, you brought one of the SIP presence people. And I said, yeah. He said, you brought in some messaging. I said, I did. I said, and I brought about 10 of the best engineers to go build this in proof of concept at 2. And he said, that's the secret. So how do customers measure your success? Sales. Why? Because we design stuff that gets sold. 2, are your customers happy? Are your designs working? So 3, are you writing the papers? Are you getting whatever education or continuing education? Have you presented to the group, et cetera, et cetera? So that's how they goal us, because it is a very amorphous job. In fact, in 2 Fridays, I'm actually going to have one of our graduates that's working at one of the big 4 consulting firms. And we were speaking last weekend. And he said, Mike, you taught me all this tech. And I said, yes. He said, you also told me there's going to be weeks and months where I'd never use any of the tech. And I said, yes. He said, Mike, I've had the best job ever. I bought a car. I got this. I got all kinds of great things. He said, I don't think I've done anything other than buy lunches or dinners and lead teams. And I said, yes. And he said, and I just spoke to my buddy at another big 4 consulting firm, and he's not real technical either. I said, that's what I've been trying to tell you. You have to be technical. You have to have all the technical depth, all the knowledge so you can do the design. But most of what we do is we coordinate the experts and we bring them together. So I used to practice medicine. And when I practiced internal medicine, here's what I did. When someone came to me with diabetes, I sent them to an endocrinologist. When someone came to me with high blood pressure, I sent them to a cardiologist. Of course I can write an insulin prescription. Of course I can write a hypertension or high blood pressure prescription. But I sent them to the experts to get their advice. Be an architect, send everybody to the best and the brightest, and you'll be gold. And your management will absolutely, absolutely, absolutely love it, love it, love it. Because they're going to see the results. They're going to see the outcomes. And that's what's going to work for you. So you will be great, great, great. So if you've got more questions, I'd love to answer them because I want you to have the best career in the world. Definitely, definitely, definitely. And I think you absolutely can. So if you've got further questions, please feel free to answer them. And Chris, if you want to bring in the next question, and Chris, before you bring in the next question, if anybody's got more questions, please bring them. Welcome, Abdur. I'm so happy to see you. Sandy, would I ever recommend someone get the CH Master or Oscp in addition to the Cissp? Sandy, that is a good question. So here's the thing. When I look at the candidate and I look at building a career, I start looking at what is it that's going to get my customer to the goal. So the first thing I would have to ask you is, what is your goal career? So if your goal career is to be just security and nothing else, I would say the CEH Master is a very good certification because it teaches you how to hack. And it's got a practical exam because it teaches you how to hack. You learn how to hack, you know how to break into systems. And because you know how to break into systems, it makes you much better at preparing them. And then the Cissp, which is an architecture certification, effectively teaching you how to design secure systems, will help you take those things that you learned with the CEH Master and apply them from a policy perspective. So the answer is, if your goal is just security, then the answer is yes, that is a good plan for a security engineer. Now, if your goal is to be a cloud security architect, and let's look at the difference between the two. We architects are systems designers. So CISSP, system design. CEH Master, not system design, but lots of deep knowledge. So do I like people to get both? Occasionally. Now, what I really recommend, Sandy, is, trying to figure out what is your weakest link. So how I look at certifications is very differently than the rest of the world. I look at certifications based upon what do hiring managers desire. Other people look at certifications and say, hey, the offensive security professional, the engineers like it more than the CEH Master. And they do. Having said that, the CIOs and the people with the checks like the CEH Master more than the Oscp. So I personally don't care what the engineers are looking for in terms of a certification. I'm looking for and it's not because I don't care about the engineers, but they're not writing the check. They're not doing the hiring. I care about what the hiring team wants. And the hiring team loves the CISSP and they love the CEH Master. So that's how I pick them. They're not related to what the engineers think in the industry is best, because the engineers aren't writing the paycheck. They're based upon what the CIOs read. And in CIO magazine, they don't ever have the OSCP, but they always have the CEH Master, and they always have the CISSP, the CCSP, and the CISM. They're typically your big four in the executive world of things that executives desire. So could you do it, Sandy? Yes. Would it hurt you? No. Would I recommend it for you? Probably not. And the reason is, you're pretty emotionally intelligent as is. You're very well spoken, from my experience. Those skills are much, 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 much more valuable. So I'd probably focus more on leadership skills. I'd probably focus more on sales skills. I'd probably maximize your executive presence. Your communication skills are good, but you could use some more presence. I'd probably learn more business acumen, and I'd probably learn a lot more about security attacks and their impact on business, Sandy. So if you can look at the historical attacks and looked at what's caused what outages and what's financial performance and how other attacks have occurred, and you study that, now you're a better wealth of information to the organization. I can help you. Look at what's happened here. Look at what's happened here. These types of attacks have occurred, but we've mitigated this with XYZ technology. And we've also done this to mitigate this, and we've done this. So I would say, could you do it? Yes. Would I do it if I was you? Probably not. I'd probably focus more time on the high value targets, which is your business acumen and your communication skills. It's a much, much, much higher value target. For example, the average salary of a CEH Master is about $110,000, $120,000. Average salary of someone with a CISSP is closer to $150,000. Now, having said that, does the certification get you hired? The answer is no. But the certifications do bring you in for that almighty interview. And that almighty interview is where the hiring manager says, yes, I'm going to hire you, Sandy, or no, I'm not. So I would say if you've got the CISSP, that's great. Now, when do I like the CEH Master? It's really good on someone that doesn't have the 5 years experience for the CISSP. It's also really good for someone that's never worked in tech before, because any of the exams like the CCIE or the CEH Master, anything where there's a practical component where you have to prove in front of an instructor that you can actually pass it and you can actually do it, they're much, much, much more respected from the industry, because it's so easy to go to any of these testing sites and actually, literally speaking, get a complete and total copy of the exam and pass any exam without knowledge. And that's the reason why. So less focus on certifications, more focus on skills. The CISSP, the Certified Solution Architect Professional, is more than enough. You could get the CH Master on it. You could also get a little Red Hat thing or a Cisco thing, something to give you a good portfolio. And I think you'd be really fantastic. So I'd probably do a CCNP security long before the CCN, because like a CCNP security would give you lots of networking and lots of security in addition to the CCSP, CISSP. Now, again, I don't think you need that, Sandy, but if you were going to do a second one, I'd probably do that one. So that way you could fill in the networking and security along with the CISSP, which is all security, along with the Certified Solution Architect Professional, which is all cloud. I think that would be a good certification portfolio for you, or just the CISSP and the Certified Solution Architect Professional, and focus on all those high value skills, your business skills, your sales skills, which come naturally to you, your presentation skills, a little more oomph and energy, but yeah, that would be my focus. So if you've got some questions, please bring them in. Otherwise, Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Chris, you want to bring in the next question? Okay. Ronald Naza, 2 days ago, you said you can earn $200,000 to $300,000 on year one as a cloud engineer or architect. When you Google it, it says 80 to 120,000. First, I never said cloud engineer. I said that very frequently that cloud architects get paid $200,000 to $500,000 a year. I get a $300,000 a year job offer every single day, 3 to 5 per day. Now, here's the thing, Ronald. What are the skills? I remember when I was told that a network engineer got paid $80,000 a year back in 1997. I got paid $200,000 a year back in 1997 or 1998 or whatever it was. And here's the reason. Everybody else focused on their low value skills, just tech. I focused on the leadership. Enterprise architects and cloud architects at the big four, at the big vendors, and whether it be a Cisco or a Dell or a Palo Alto, they're getting paid several $100,000 a year. But you got to remember what they're doing. They're learning skills. When we had Christina Marino, she says, look, I get the $300,000 jobs every single day for cloud architects. So it's not the normal range. It's what happens if you're good. 2/3 of these cloud architect jobs that are out there aren't even architect jobs. They're DevOps engineering jobs, and they don't get paid that well. So engineers top. A max engineer salary is about 180. And it doesn't matter how good you are, you can't go above that. In fact, we made a video that we're releasing next week, and or was it a LinkedIn post? I can't remember, but I know it left my desk a few weeks ago, and we talked about skills that are valuable. And we talked about why we don't want people to actually get a million and one certifications. And we talked about certifications on average, raising someone's salary up to $10,000 a year. And then we talked about things that have a big difference. So if you start looking up business acumen and you start looking up MBA salaries, you're going to see they're crazy. But they're all over the place. There's a huge range. What is this range? Someone that's going to go in there, that's going to be a certified solution architect professional, that's going to have all 10x AWS certifications, is going to peak at around $160,000 a year. And there's no more that's ever going to happen. And the reason they're going to peak at this price, at this salary, is that's all they're worth, because all they have is tech. Now, what is the difference, Ronald, between a real architect and a technical architect? Because these technical architects, especially the solution architects that function as technical solution architects, are very different. An architect itself, a real architect, an enterprise architect like me, or a cloud architect that focuses on the business, I start at the CEO. A cloud engineer will never meet the CEO. I start at the CEO. Because of the business acumen that I've trained, because whether I do management consulting, enterprise architecture, or cloud architecture, I do the same job. I'm going to go now ask that billionaire CEO about their business. I'm going to ask him about their goals. I'm going to ask him about their legal and regulatory requirements, and I'm going to understand what he told me. So I think, that's on one. The reason salaries are so high for good architects is good architects are business executives. They are not engineers. So a good architect will have no concept of coding. A good architect can walk into a room and present to 5,000 people in a moment's notice. A good architect can go to the CEO and ask them about their business and understand top line revenue and understand net operating income and EBITDA and things like that within a second without thinking about it. A good architect that earns $200,000 to $500,000 a year is going to go into an organization that's going to watch what people do. It's going to look at their workflows, and it's going to say, oh, wait, we've got lots of employees doing this, and this is sucking up time. That's what we architects do. And then a good architect is going to go meet with the business and they're going to ask about business processes. How do people do things? And then they're going to re-architect the processes if they're there. So there's a huge range for cloud architects, and it depends on what you're studying. See, Ronald, when we train our architects, we're training the executive presentation skills and the executive communication skills. And we're talking about ROI modeling. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about all the big high value skills, in addition to the low value skills, which is just the tech. So a good architect is both. I remember when AWS came on one of our student calls one day, and they said the reason they loved at least one of the directors there, they said the reason they loved our program so much is we're like the only people out there they're not just teaching the tech. They said, look, we got all these great technical people. They come in every single day. They're techie, and they know everything other than how to design a solution or how to present it to the customer. And in fact, when you go on these interviews, they're going to be very soft skills oriented. So look, I can tell you that I get a $200,000 to $500,000 a year job offer every single day of the week. I can tell you that all the other really good cloud architects I know do the same thing. So that's what I can tell you. But again, I never got paid average. I never got paid close to average. None of my students ever got paid close to average because average was focusing on just hands-on tech. And we focus on the hands-on tech and then stuff. As the stuff, it's the extra stuff. That's why constantly when people ask me, should I do another certification? And I say, no. That's why when I say, look at the data, the statistics on training soft skills on average raises someone's salary over 30%. So at $180,000 or $200,000 times 30%, guess what? That is $60,000 right there. Now you start looking at emotional intelligence training and the statistics are clear. Individuals with higher levels of emotional intelligence have, typically speaking, $29,600 more per year salary than those that don't. Now add 30 plus 60, now you're $90,000 a year, and that's your 180 plus 90 is your 270. It's the extra stuff. It's those things that make you better. It's all about the extra stuff that we teach. It's this extra stuff that makes an architect, not an engineer. That's why people say, Mike, if I want to be an architect, should I work as an engineer for a while? And I say, no, because architect skills and engineering skills are different. I lead, I present, I translate, I design, I sell. An engineer builds and codes. No relationship whatsoever other than the underlying tech. Chris, I think there's a second half of this question I definitely want to answer. How do you tell a company that you have these skills like leadership, curiosity? You just say in an interview. Ronald Nazo, when I interview someone, it is clear in the first 3 seconds about their business acumen. If I ask someone, how would you design this? I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to listen intently. I'm going to listen to see what the person does. Does the person ask clarifying questions about the business? If they don't, I know they don't know anything about architecture. If I give them requirements and they repeat them back to me, I know they've been trained in communications. When I ask them to present the technology back to me, do they just ramble off a bunch of technical facts and figures and jargon? Or do they explain to me what is the tech, how does the tech work, and how does it benefit the customer? When I ask the customer, when I do my interviews and I say, tell me about a time that you presented, there's going to be there. And you know what, Ronald, on any good cloud architect interview, you're going to have to give a presentation in front of a large group. Now, for the more junior positions, no, but for a good one, you're going to be forced to present in front of a group of people. And not only are you going to be forced to present, Ronald, if they want to check your emotional intelligence, they might actually start an argument while you're giving the presentation to see how well you manage, and that's going to happen there. So the way you describe your answers, the way you sit, Ronald, how do you tell a company that you have these skills like leadership, curiosity, etc.? You just say on an interview, I'm curious. Or Ronald, Chris, you want to move that thing from the screen? Or are you sitting back in your chair? How do you tell a company that you have these skills such as leadership, curiosity? See, it's the difference between making a point and pause. If you're here, let me try and sit taller in this. So, hi, my name is Michael Gibbs. I'm a cloud architect. Hi, I'm Michael Gibbs. I'm a cloud architect. I'm meeting with you today to evaluate your business. Do you see the difference? Do you feel the difference? It's the presence factor. So the point is it's so obvious. I can tell you, every one of us has been in a room and someone's walked in and you've just known they're in charge. That's executive presence. It's called gravitas, and you must have that. When someone gives a speech or describes a technology, here's what an engineer does. The problem we're trying to talk about today is this. The company has a slow WAN, so what we're going to do is we're going to upgrade their networking connections, and we think we're going to do that, and we're going to add QoS. The architect doesn't present like that. The architect is going to say, we have the solution. We're going to enhance the speed of your network, and that's going to give you better performance. The executives don't care about the details. We're going to come up with a solution and then provide the substantiating evidence. Engineers, by comparison, talk about the problem before they get to the solution. So it's just so many different ways that we live and work, and it is so obvious. When you walk into a room, your posture says everything. Your clothes say everything. Do you know when you join a Big Four consulting firm like McKinsey, which is, by the way, the breeding ground for executives, and I started with management consulting too and did a lot of it, which is where I learned a lot of these things. Of course, I also spent about $250,000 on soft skills, but Cisco helped fund a lot of that. But the point is, these are the things that matter, and it's grossly obvious to you. Two people walk in the room. How do you tell the engineer versus the sales executive? The sales executive stands taller. They're dressed differently. They communicate differently. And it hits you like a wall. And the questions that the person will ask will hit you like a wall. The way the person will talk will hit you like a wall. The person's attitude, communication skills are so obvious. Watch a cloud engineer present. You can see them. They're in the corner of their little screen, hiding in the corner. They've never been an architect. They're the people that are making the certification training. They're like little hidden in the right-hand corner of your screen, and they're hiding, and hi, my name is this, and we're going to talk about load balancers today. We're the architect. We're going to talk about load balancers, which can improve the performance and availability of your system so you can make more money. It's a very different thing and very different description. So we can pick it out in a second and a half. So I hope I answered your question, and please, 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 feel free to ask, a subsequent question, because I really want to help you, because this concept is super, super, super important. Rohit Dubey. One daily habit that solution architects must perform to be better at their jobs. Well, what I would say is this. There were a couple things that I practiced early on in my career. One is I used to practice presenting every single day for about 2 years, and it made a big, big, big difference. In fact, when I deal with people, I often recommend they join Toastmasters so they can give a lot of presentations and they can get really used to it. Good presentation skills can almost double your salary. So, this is a skill that you really have to have. Now, Rohit, what else should you do each day? I like to start each day, and I like to do something to keep my body calm. So, Rohit, I do a little yoga or pranayama breathing. It's a form of meditation each day. How does that make you better at your job? It doesn't, and it does, and I'll explain it. So, the biggest predictor of your long-term career success is actually your emotional intelligence. So, biggest predictor of long-term success, the statistics show us again and again and again, it's emotional intelligence. And I'm also going to tell you that, when we look at IQ or intelligence, that gets us this far. But once we reach a limit, everybody's just as smart and everybody's just as skilled. And that's the difference. The difference between that $200,000 architect versus the $400,000 is that business acumen. So what is that? And it's the communication skills, it's the leadership, but it's very much a big component of emotional intelligence. So now, what is emotional intelligence? It's the ability to control your emotions and the ability to control others' emotions. So still, I recommend like Goldman training or the kind of training that we do. But one thing that I like to do each day is calm myself down. If I can make myself relaxed and I can calm my emotions, it becomes much, 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 much easier. Of course, you can take that thing off of the screen. It becomes much easier to manage other people's emotions. So here's the key. I like to meditate each day or do some kind of activity. Now, I'm also going to tell you this. As architects, world's going to be bombarding us. My phone's going to be like, yeah. You're constantly, it's never, ever going to stop. So because of this, we're going to find ourselves in a position that you want to work on your emotional intelligence. You want to work on your communication skills. You want to do everything that you need. And that's really great. So I would say that. Now, what I also do each day is I spend 15 minutes per day on some new emerging technology, and I learn how it can transform a business. Got to remember, as architects, we don't configure, we don't code, we don't touch the tech, but we have to master the tech. We have to know how the tech can help the customer. So if the engineer is concerned with how to build it, so let's say I'm a network engineer, for example, and I'm configuring the BGP on my routers. You got to know a lot about that. Now, I'll take a step back, and today I'm the network architect, which I've taken a real long period of time. I'm just designing the network. So, okay, I'd like, these are what our BGP peering is going to look like. This is our underlying OSPF. This is what our RSVP signaling is going to look like. This is what our MPLS TE tunnels are going to look like. And I'm never going to build it from there. but these are the things that I know. So what I would say is I like to spend, 10 to 15 minutes a day meditating every single day. I like to spend 15 minutes a day focusing on keeping my tools sharp, making sure that I at least learn something new, and practice your presentations. And I think you'll have a much, 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 much better career. And it's a really great question. Love that question. Michael, you mentioned sales as being part of a solution architect. How big is this component? Michael, it is huge. Huge. So in most cases, Michael, you will never touch the tech. In fact, the reason so many people have such a hard time getting hired as a solution architect is here's their training. They do the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate, and let's say the Solution Architect Professional too. Now, what is that training? It's the name of an AWS service and how to configure it. Oh, wait, architects don't code. So, when we're dealing with these and architects don't configure. So, when we're starting to deal with some of these questions, they're completely, totally unrelated to what we actually do. So how important are sales skills? Critical. Not only that, I will tell you that, having sales skills versus not having sales skills is the difference between getting hired and not getting hired. Now, if you don't have sales skills, you could still be what's called a technical solution architect. And here's what a technical solution architect is. Let's say you've got a cloud engineer that's really, really good. And, they've reached their max, their $160,000, $180,000 salary, and you want to give them a little more, maybe 200, 210. What you do is you create something called a technical solution architect. And this is really a cloud engineer, but they're so good, you want to pay them a little more. And you know what they call them? We invented this position called the technical solution architect. And the technical solution architect is going to be somebody that doesn't sell. They might do a little Python. They might do a little configuration. But remember, that position is going to be very limiting without sales skills, and the career will just stop, and it will be a hard stop. So, learning how to sell, really, really important for any good tech career. And that's going to separate these roles like architecture from the non-architecture. And it's not just selling to customers. I want you to understand how critical sales skills are for the architect. Let's say you worked at AWS as a post-sales architect, and you had nothing related to sales. Now, you're in your job. Now you're designing an architecture that somebody else pre-designed, and now you're going to improve it. Now it hits your desk. This organization now has 200,000 employees, 100,000 servers. They're in 6 different regions. They've got 1,000 VPCs that are being peered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think one person is going to do that? No. So what are you going to do? You're going to go find your cloud networking person, your cloud security people, your cloud big data people, your cloud database, your cloud IAM. You're going to bring in and you're going to build a team of 20 people. Now you need to get these 20 people to work for you. But you don't pay their salaries, but you're going to have to get them to work for you because we architects do that. So now you got to go make all these people work for you. So the first thing you need to do is go reach out to all their managers and convince their managers to let you borrow one of their $200,000 a year employees. So first you got to do that. And you might need 50 of them. So you have to borrow 50 $200,000 employees. You've got to sell the management team. I need these people. These $10 million of people, and you're going to need it for the next year. So you're going to have to sell the management to give you the resources that you need. Now you've got all these really brilliant engineers and solution architects working for you because you're the lead. Now, guess what? Now you got to get them to do their jobs. And here's the thing. You're not their manager, which means you can't say, do your job or you're fired. You have to make them want to do their job. So it really relates to your ability to exercise influence or them to sell them into this. And you know what also depends upon? If you want to be successful as an architect and you build a team of 20 engineers, and I go to 20 people's managers and say, I need to borrow your people. And then I get these people and they're going to work for me for a year without working for me. I'm now obligated, or at least personally, I feel obligated to manage this team's career. So I'm going to sit down with every one of those 20 people that I borrow, and I'm going to ask every last one of them, where do you want to be next year? Where do you want to be in your career? And while these people are working for me, I figure that I'm obligated to bring them up and help teach them, help bring in their leadership skills. So by the time they're done working for me, I can get them a promotion because I'm going to have people working for me that don't work for me, and I have to make them want to work. So my long-term success as an architect is going to be the leadership, my sales skills, and how good I can take my employees that are coming to work for me, and can I get them better? So now I want you to think about this. Mike, who loves to sell, I sold my managers. I got 20 people that work for me. The people are there. I'm taking them to dinner. I'm taking them to lunches. I'm convincing them to be happy. And I'm helping getting half of them hired. Now, half of them get promoted at the end of the year. Now, I've got 10 people that are now in promotions that are now loyal to me because they worked for me for a year. And when somebody works for you, you owe it to them to take care of their career. You owe it to them. You owe it to them to take care of their leadership skills. You owe it to them to help them. They're helping you. You owe it to them. You have to do it back. So in the process, people help you. You boost their careers. And now you've got a following of people everywhere. Now you want a job, you call somebody and say, I need a job. Now you get bombarded every day for the rest of your life with job offers. So how critical is sales skills to being an architect? Essential, 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 essential. And I strongly recommend that if you learn them, it will help you with every component of your life. And if you don't like sales, that's okay too. There are other careers that you can do well with, things like cloud engineering, DevOps engineering. But I'm going to tell you this. If you want to move up the ranks or move up the management ranks, you're still going to have to learn to sell. Sales is critical to everything. So I hope I answered your question. As you can tell, I find sales to be very, very, very important. And you know what? When I used to practice medicine before I moved into tech, you know how important sales was? You know what it's like to convince a patient to take a pill that's got side effects, but if they don't take that pill, they're going to die. So sales is a critical skill for every career. It's the thing that separates you from everybody else. It's the thing that really maximizes your salary and that maximizes your career growth. So, Chris, please feel free to bring in the next one. GZ, hi, Greg. Would I recommend Toastmasters for honing communication skills? What would you recommend for learning sales or business acumen? So, GZ, you know, you have access to learning a lot of these business skills. And if you come to one of the classes, and I know you were for a while, and I know you've had some critical things going in your life, you'll be able to do some more of it. But, and I actually have some extra business content that Chris from my team is editing that he's actually going to pop in there, some ROI modeling and some much more CXO relevancy skills coming very, very soon, like in this month. So there's that. But, you know, I would definitely learn how to read a financial statement. Definitely. I would definitely look into CXO relevancy. And what does the CEO care about versus the CFO versus the CIO? I would familiarize myself with management consulting principles, the kind of things that are done at, say, a McKinsey or an Accenture, because that's all we do. We're basically management consultants. In fact, my first big enterprise architecture job, I was part of a management consulting team. And I was all excited. I got my first business job. And then the EVP said to me, Mike, I'd like you to be the architect. And I was like, but I just got out of tech. And he says, you're an architect. You're not going to be a tech person. No, going back about 2 decades. And I didn't really realize what he meant by that. And I said, I don't want to be configuring routers anymore. And he said, configure routers. You're going to be an architect. And I said, and he said, I need you to go interact with clients, figure out about their business, come up with, you know, the modules of what it's going to take to be better and write a white paper about it. And I said, okay, I'm your man. And, you know, I did that and wrote a couple of papers, and wow, it was an unbelievable experience. So go do that, but go to Toastmasters, Greg. In fact, I think I just mentioned it a few minutes ago about how much I love Toastmasters. I send a lot of people to Toastmasters. In fact, the people that have been helped most by Toastmasters, every once in a while, I work with some really amazing engineers. And what I mean by amazing engineers, these are the technical people that are really good. Really technical engineers. So, you know, there's that. And these are the folks that benefit the most from Toastmasters. Greg, you're pretty well spoken, like very well spoken. You're highly educated and you communicate well. But Toastmasters is great. So yeah, highly recommend it. Can never ever go wrong with Toastmasters. And it's free. So what a great place to get practice experience. Love it. Sukhoti Singh, hi. Will you be doing a video on how to install Linux on a server and different software as you advised? We have plenty of videos on our YouTube channel on Linux, and I believe we did an install in one. We set up a virtual machine in another, and we walked you through Linux commands. They're all actually on our on our YouTube channel already. And Chris from my team can post some of the Linux blogs that we've created, some of the Linux videos. We've absolutely done that. So Chris, if you can pop the links to those. Giovanni. Mike, as a cloud architect, We prepare to be able to work on projects in any cloud provider. Yes. Do you see any negativity by not working with the big three? Any negative? Not at all. So here's the reality. I think there's lots and lots and lots of companies that are even better to work for than the big three cloud providers, like much better to work for. So IBM on a resume looks extremely good. What is IBM known for? IBM is known for their business and their management consulting and their leadership and their relationship development, which is the highest value skills out there. So I would say IBM looks really, really good. I would then also say any of the people that advise the cloud providers on how to design their clouds, the Ciscos of the world, the Juniper Networks of the world, the F5s of the world, the storage people, those people are really good to work for too. They have the capability and the knowledge to advise the cloud providers on how to build their cloud. So they really, really look good on your resume. Banks look good on your resume. It really doesn't matter where you work. There's a lot of good places. So instead of basically thinking just the big four or the big three, think about where you can make the biggest impact. So I've got a person that worked in the financial industry for 20 years. Well, where is that going to be? Do I make him an architect that works on Wall Street? Well, that person's sure going to have a good job. Or do I set him up in a business solutions group, like a Microsoft, for example, or a Cisco would have their Internet Business Solutions group. They've got a new group, or one of these customer success director roles. Guess what? Those organizations all hire these kinds of people, and they are big jobs. And let me tell you, the people like me that were on the Internet Business Solutions group at Cisco, which everybody reported to a VP, to an EVP, which basically went to the CIO. We were 2 management levels away from the CIO. That's how close the CEO, that's how close these business, these business solutions groups are in these companies, because these groups actually advise the CEO on how to design their products and services, and they build business councils of executives. So no, not at all. When people say, Mike, where should I work as a cloud architect? I say, I don't know. Palo Alto, Cisco, Dell, IBM, they've got clouds. I say any global retailer. I say any global bank. I say any global business would be a great organization, anything in the Fortune 100. And then I would proceed to say the management consulting firms like Bearing Point, Accenture, really good places to work, really excellent places to work, and they build you a career. And those places, by the way, if manage being at a Bearing Point or an Accenture, and you're there for 5 years, think about the number of CEOs that you interact with. Think about the number of CIOs you interact with. Think about the training to walk, talk that they give you. 4 or 5 years later from that, you have the ability to be a CIO or a CTO. So would I say the big three clouds are the best places to work? No, I think they're great places, and I love every last one of them, but there's lots of better places to work. And there's lots of places that you can build a career. And really what I think you should do is find a place that suits your personality. And that's where you'll be happiest. I was really happy at Cisco. Why? It was an extremely entrepreneurial company. And I loved that. My manager at the beginning there would say, Mike, this is what I need from you for the next 12 months. And let's sync up every week to tell me what help you need. That was it. That's how I thrive. But some people need to be given directions. And for those people, that's not a great kind of environment. So what I really think, really think in my heart is that you should go at any place that's going to make you happy. That's the secret. Where will you be happy? But I made this video today. I really want everybody to see it. So Chris, if you drop the link to that video, it's really about what we cloud architects do. And then Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Niraj, hello, sir. You're an undergraduate computer science and engineering student. Could I please guide you on a roadmap on how to become a cloud architect? Absolutely. So Niraj, here's the thing. What is a cloud architect? There's a system designer. And Niraj, by the way, please see that video that we popped here directly. And also Chris from my page will pop a link on, we made a video on how to become a cloud architect. And guess what? Tomorrow, everybody, we have a free how to get your first cloud architect job webinar. And in this webinar, please sign up. It's free and it'll be on Zoom. You'll be able to ask any questions you want. But it's not just the questions you're going to ask on this free webinar tomorrow. We'll tell you everything you need. But what do you really need? You need to know the network and the data center, and then you know the business and communication skills piece. So what are we talking about from the network? We are talking about BGP, the routing protocol, You really should know an interior gateway protocol such as OSPF and how it works and why. And we're not talking about configuring these things. We're talking about designing. You should know NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, NAT static NAT, dynamic NAT, NAT overload, and all the use cases for NAT. You should know all about packet filters such as access control lists. You should know about IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, and this is really important. You need a lot of depth there. Now, you should understand switching, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, the way switches build a MAC address table, for example. You should understand VLANs. You should understand VLAN trunking protocols. You should understand 802.1q tagging, Q and Q tagging. You should understand Ethernet WANs. You should understand Ethernet over MPLS. You should understand software-defined networking at minimum on the networking side. And then you should understand servers and server virtualizations, containers, firewalls, load balancers, IDS, IPS systems, Active Directory for identity and access management, as well as Radius servers. You should have good, strong knowledge on block storage, object storage, and file storage. And what they teach in the AWS Solutions Architect Professional doesn't even scratch the surface of what's necessary, about 50 times that depth. And then you should be very familiar with all the clouds and how they work, such as an OpenStack cloud or an Nutanix cloud, hybrid clouds, multi-cloud environments, and how to design them. Next, you need to be able to sell. So you need some sales skills. You need to be able to present well, so lots of presentation skills training. You need to be able to perform ROI modeling, so you're lots of business acumen training. How to read a financial statement, absolutely. How to improve an organization's financial performance is absolutely critical. So there's those things that are really the crux of what makes a cloud architect. And of course, you have to, the primary thing that we architects do is design systems. So you've got to learn system design. So those are the components, system design of the knowledge and the components of the network and the data center. How to take all those things in the network and the data center and move them to the cloud, which is nothing more than another network and a data center just been virtualized. And it's really about making the customer's business better. So make sure you have to learn a lot about business. You can't improve someone's business if you don't understand their business. So kind of keep that in mind. Those are the skills that are going to be necessary to really win. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question, if you've got more questions, bring them. Ronald Nazo, how do you train as a cloud architect? Do you need to know most of the services and how they work, not how to configure? Should you find different requests for a system and find the best solution? Okay, so, Ronald, how we train cloud architects, Chris from my team can pop a video on there because it's taken us 20 years to really optimize the way we train people to make them successful. And I can't answer that in 5 minutes or even 5 hours or even 5 days. Now, having said all of that, I'll do the best I can to give you a brief answer that you can actually get here. So here is the thing. If you truly understand the technology, Ronald, truly understand the technology, then guess what? And yeah, perfect. You understand what it is. And here's what I mean by this. There's no services to learn. There's only the data center and the network. So if I'm designing a website, what am I dealing with? Well, I'm dealing with either a network load balancer, an application load balancer, or both, depending upon the size of my servers. I'm dealing with web servers, typically speaking. I'm typically dealing with another set of load balancers and application servers. And then I'm typically dealing with a database. Maybe it's a relational database. Maybe I need to scale the relational database with read replicas, caching, and queuing. Okay, guess what? That load balancers, web servers, load balancers, app servers, relational database. Now I'm on AWS. So I pick an elastic load balancer, say a network one. Then maybe I need a 128 core server with 4 terabytes of DRAM. And I say, okay, that's an N1, I'm sorry, no, that's not Azure. It's an X1E.32 XLG on AWS. Okay, now I need another load balancer for my app servers. Guess what? Let's stick another elastic load balancer. Okay, now, I need a 4 terabyte, 128 core, 4 terabyte of DRAM, a bunch of servers for my app servers. Okay, proof, another X1E32 XLG. Now my database servers. I need a relational database. Okay, now maybe on one of these X1E32.XLGs, I set up a MySQL database, and then maybe I make 4 read replicas and on 4 more of them. Maybe I set up an SQSQ because I'm on AWS, and maybe I add some Redis caching to reduce the load on the read replicas. Done. Oh wait, now I'm on Azure. Guess what I still need? I still need a load balancer. It doesn't change. The only thing that changes is the name of it. Okay, now let's call it an Azure load balancer instead of an elastic load balancer. Now I need a virtual machine with 128 cores. I go to the Azure store. I Google the virtual machine that has 128 cores and 4 terabytes of DRAM, and I get an M128S V2. So I get that. And I install my same web server applications on this. Oh, wait, I need a load balancer now for my app servers. So I get an Azure load balancer. Okay. Now, guess what? Now I'm going to get another M128S. Oh, wait, I'm going to do a MySQL database. Okay, I'm going to stick that on a M128S. Oh, now what am I going to do? I'm going to get a queue from Microsoft. I'm going to get some read replicas. I'm going to get some caching. Okay, now I'm on Google. What am I going to do? I'm going to get a cloud load balancer. I'm going to go to Google Compute Engine and get a virtual machine. See the thing? It's all the same. There is no such thing. It's just a network and a data center. It's all 30 years old. When you see AWS talk about brand new routing, east-west routing, you can say Cisco did that in 1990. And when AWS says, guess what? We can now use a network load balancer, the front-end application load balancer, say, great, F5 did it 20 years ago. So the point is all the stuff in the cloud, it's all old network and data center technology. Cloud Hub, Transit Gateway, it's a BGP route reflector from 1990. So the point is this. The cloud is exciting because it's the network and the data center that's outsourced. It's somebody else's and it's easier to move. It is agile as can be. It used to take 6 weeks to set up a server. Now I can do it in seconds. So the key is knowing what is the tech that solves it. How does a web server increase sales? I got to know that. That's the architect knowledge. How do you scale a web server? If we stick it in the cloud, are we using auto scaling? Okay, it's Christmas. How do we, as architects, what do we need to know that needs to be done to make the systems auto scale when we need them instead of auto scaling at its too slow pace? Maybe we've got to pre-warm load balancers, change the desired capacity of our servers. It's the same on every environment. So it's not that you need to know the services, you need to know what is the things that you're trying to do and then figure out a module. And whether you're dealing with streaming data, if it's Apache Kafka or Kinesis, it doesn't matter. There's a million one things to do it, and all the providers have. So I design my architecture in terms of the tech. And then after that, I say, okay, I'm going to put this in the data center, or I'm going to put this on Azure, or I'm going to put it in Google. When I learned to drive a car, I didn't learn how to drive a Nissan Sentra and then take special training for a Honda Accord, and then take special training for a Toyota Corolla, and then special training for a Hyundai. When I go travel, I just rent a car and I can drive it. Well, if you learn the cloud the right way, the way we're describing, you can get in any cloud provider and you'll always know what to do because we're the people that design it. Now, again, remember, we're architects, which means we've got a team of engineers that can help us. So we only need to know what are the modules. Where do my firewalls go? Where does my IDS IPS systems go if I need them? How do I put anti-malware on a protection on the server? How do I disable unnecessary ports? How do I, et cetera, et cetera? It's the same thing on all the cloud providers. The only thing, there's some subtle differences. So learn to drive a car. Learn to drive the cloud. Don't worry about the name of the service or how to configure them because that's not our job. That's what engineers do. And you should be good to go. And then you'll be able to work on any cloud, anywhere, anytime. Chris, do you want to bring in the next one? Hello, Mr. Gibbs. EWB is okay, great. When we have former students on for a group chat to discuss the cloud architect experience for my program. Okay, so we have a cloud architect experience program that we don't, which is if that's what you're asking about, that is something that people buy. It is not part of our cloud architect career development program, which is what we're talking about. I think in 2 Fridays, I have one of our graduates coming in on Friday to discuss his experience on our program. Some of my students are on here. Some of them probably already been hired. Sometimes Ian pops in, or Arun likes to pop in, or there's lots of my students that get hired. So, but lots of them like to pop into one of these things. So I think we're going to have them in on next Friday. But lots of my students are out there you could talk to. What is EWB, by the way? Sounds like something kind of cool to come up with a nice name. So I think it's I think it's in 2 Fridays from now. But this Friday, by the way, I've got a good friend coming on, and he's a really inspirational guy. So there'll be lots more coming with my good friend Benjika that's coming on Friday afternoon. And I got to tell you, He's a very, very interesting person that does an incredible amount of things to help others, and very inspirational person. I'm thrilled to have him excited on our channel. So, Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. TNT, event planning. What do you need to become a successful architect? I'd say strong technical competency, a high degree of emotional intelligence, excellent sales skills, excellent presentation skills, excellent leadership skills, excellent business acumen, excellent writing skills, excellent business acumen, the ability to do some ROI modeling, being being able to sell. I'd say those are the skills that you realistically need. Now, that technical competency piece, what does that mean? That means knowledge of the network and the data center, which is what the cloud is. So that's typically what you need. But really, 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 why is an architect so different than an engineer? What affects that architect pay? Why can you have a $100,000 architect and a $500,000 architect? That's the key. Why is this range so big? And this specific thing is really the difference. So what is that you need to be really, really, really successful? It's the ability to translate those business requirements from the executives into that technology solution. So what does that really mean? It means you've got to have a lot of knowledge of business, like a lot of it. How do you go to a CIO and ask them about their $50 billion of revenue and how you can improve that by 2% if you don't know enough about the business? So you've got to know the business. Now, I want you to think about this. Let's take a company that has $200 billion, $300 billion in revenue. There's a lot of them. So if we can make them 2% more efficient, just 2%, and I'll do the math for you. And this is why architects are so well paid. If you can take someone that's got $200 billion a year, let me just do the math on my calculator. So that's 20 million, And then, so if we do that and we can save them 0.2, just 2%, what we're actually dealing with is $400 million a year of savings by making somebody 2% more efficient. A really good architect, TNT event planning, can look at a business and say, 200,000 employees, $200 billion in sales. If we could just get these people and these people talking to each other a little better and faster, we could add 0.5% to productivity of the organization, which is worth right then and there $50 million right then and there, just by something so small. Now, can we do something to get the customers closer to the organization so the organization can make better business decisions? Maybe hold less inventory because they know what the customer's buying patterns are. Maybe sell a little more because they know how and when to write a sale based upon all this. That could easily add 2%. So see, we architects can easily add, $500 million to an organization's business if we're good. So if you're that kind of strategic advisor that can make a few $100 million difference, the customer could pay you $10 million to the job, and it's still a good value because they'd be earning 40 times more or more from your design. So what do you need to be a successful architect? It's really about that gravitas, or that je ne sais quoi. It's really about that business acumen. It's about the ability to solve business problems through technology. So you've got to know the tech. You've got to know the tech, but it's much more non-tech than tech. That's the secret of the enterprise architect or the elite architect. The junior architect is all tech. The customer doesn't care about the tech. Go talk to the CEO about his tech. You'll get escorted out of the room faster than you could possibly imagine. Or the person will be on their phone within 10 seconds. They don't care about the tech. Here's the thing. We techies love the tech. You walk into my house right now. I'm in my office. I've got 3 4K monitors. I've got a 64-core desktop that I'm actually using for me right now with a couple of Quadro cards and a 0.5 terabyte of RAM. I've got 9 24-core servers. I've got Cisco firewalls, and I've got a 10 gig switch network through my home in every room of the house. This is crazy. People don't do this, but this is my network because I'm a techie. No business likes tech. You go talk to the CEO about tech, and they're like, yeah, all right. They're like, what tech do I need? What's the minimum level of stuff that I need to solve my problem? That's all they want. So your skill, what makes you so successful, is the ability to basically take someone and give them what they need and convince them they need it and actually solve their problem. You never sell something that doesn't work. That's the end of your career. You got to be good at it. You got to make it work, and you got to solve your customer's problem. So That's the difference between your various levels of architects. The better your business, the more capable. The better your tech knowledge, which is really your network and data center knowledge. And that's where I think the industry has it wrong. So my students get hired all the time. And here's the thing. I remember working with a nice AWS group, and they're like, I was teaching them about server virtualization. And I had set up a VMware ESXi server for them and had them all build virtual machines. And the organizer of the group said, I'm so glad you're doing this. And he says, how are we going to convince people that they need to do this? And I said, what do you mean? He says, isn't the whole point of the cloud to get away from this? And I said, well, yeah, but how do you design what you don't know? And he starts laughing and he says, okay, that's what I'm going to tell him. And then I said to him, what is the basis of computing on the cloud? And he said, virtual machines. And I said, so aren't we effectively building all the compute platform in the cloud? And he said, yeah. He's like, now I know how to position it for my people. So network and data center. So make sure you know those two. And that means, BGP, it means OSPF, it means routing, it means access control list, it means NAT, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It means IP addressing, it means interior gateway protocols, it means traffic engineering, it means QoS, it means NAT, it means server virtualization containers, firewalls, different types of file sharing protocols, IDS, IPS systems, VPN concentrators, Active Directory, radius servers, all that kind of stuff. Those are your tech tools. Load balancers, DNS, etc. So that's your tool to implement the business. But again, it's a business job. It is a business thing you're trying to achieve. It is not a tech thing you're trying to achieve. It's a business thing. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Osumo. Hi, Mike. Thanks for your high-value content. So you've mentioned cloud architects do not need coding skills. However, some networking content you've seen online teaches Python. Okay, Osama, that is a great question. So it goes into the engineer versus the architect. So engineers do need coding. A cloud engineer will be building. So a cloud engineer will need to know Python. They will need to know Terraform. Probably CloudFormation is kind of dead, but Terraform is definitely there. They're going to need to know Node.js, a good cloud engineer. So yeah, now in networking, Osamo, we've got two sets of things. We've got network architects like me, who are systems designers who don't touch the command line, and we have network engineers. Network engineers configure routers, and I did my fair share of network engineering, and I loved it. But network engineers are now doing Python to automate network configuration. So if you're training in networking content, and you're training to be a network engineer, you will have to learn Python. You'll have to. But if you're a network architect, we won't do it. So Osama, Michael, this is the difference. Engineers build, architects design. So when you're a builder, these are your skill sets. But when you're an architect, it is not. So that's the difference. That's where almost everybody goes wrong, is they want to be architects, and then they train to be engineers. So there's no coding for an architect. Guess what else there isn't, Michael? There's no configuring either. So when I moved from engineering to architecture, Osama, that was the last time I touched a router for work. Now, granted, I've got a 10 gig Cisco network floating in my house, so I'm always working on Cisco stuff because I love it. But as an architect, I don't touch it in my job. I do it as my hobby to stay strong, so I don't lose any of my technical skills. So that's the thing. We're talking about what would work exactly. So that's what we're trying to talk about. So for network engineers, you definitely need Python. For network architects, you don't. For cloud engineers, you need Python. For cloud architects, you don't. For DevOps engineers, you need a code. For cloud architects, you don't. So Osumo, it's really, really, really about having the right skills to match your right job at the right time. So and I don't really know which job you want, so just keep that in mind. And if you tell me, I'll happily guide you. But for cloud engineers, yes. For network engineers, sure. Now, when I learned network engineering 20 some years ago, we didn't do any coding. In fact, all we did was configure routers. But when I worked in network engineering, it was a little different. I saw somebody at AWS made a social media post today. It was kind of a joke to me. They said, I've been in networking and I never thought I'd see an 800 gigabits instance. I've been in networking for 10 years. And I was thinking, when I started in networking, the routers that were out there, and they were $5,000 for a router that could do 2 megabits of throughput per second. So Just getting to 100 megabit per second on an internet router seemed impressive to us. And then I remember when Cisco came out with the gigabit switch router. This was this big, massive thing that could do a gigabit per second of throughput. And now in networking, we're dealing with routers and switches that can do anything. And now with NVMe RAID arrays, the speed that we can pump out there is incredible, especially if we were to bundle a bunch of 100 gig network connections together. So we can do incredible things now. But it's all about making sure you have the right skills for the job. Engineers, Python, architects, design. Chris, you want to bring in the next one? Sandy, do hiring managers look at active Toastmasters involvement? Yes. You're trying to find a Toastmasters meetup where you're out in U-Hub, but you're working with all the local meetup times. Sandy, absolutely. I advise my students to put that on there. So when they're on there and they're on that interview, they can tell the hiring manager, look, I'm working above and beyond. So Sandy, what do hiring managers like? First and foremost, technical competency or the ability to do the job. After that, what do hiring managers always want? Energetic and enthusiastic people. What do they want? They want people they can trust, so people that don't lie on an interview. After that, they want people that bring out the best in others or emotionally intelligent. And then they want people that are willing to go above and beyond. So when you're going to a Toastmasters, Sandy, pop that down. When you build your own cloud, Sandy, and I know you're going to build an OpenStack cloud in our program, put it down. But yes, yes, yes. Put down Toastmasters under professional development, and employers love that. Because employers know you're focused on self-improvement. Employers like people that get better every day, but employers also like people that present well. So yes, Sandy, great, 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 great place to do it. I've advised so many people to do it, and I strongly recommend it. And you know what else I recommend, Sandy, when you're presenting in Toastmasters? Wear the same kind of clothes that you'll present in your real job. Because I got to tell you, when I first started presenting, I was dressed like this. Then I was an enterprise architect, and then I'm wearing an Armani or a Canelli suit every day because that was the uniform. And, you know, I wasn't naturally comfortable in the suit when I first got in the suit. So I had to get used to the suit. So, you know, practice dressing exactly like real life. Make it feel like real life. Make your practice as close to reality as perfect, and you're there. Now, the only thing that I cause people with practice makes permanent. Perfect practice makes perfect. So when you're going to practice things, you need to know that it's right. So for students like mine in the career development program, they know that it's right because we got to teach them in class. But if you're on your own and you're not with someone like us, make sure you can find someone that's qualified, that's been working in the industry with 5 to 10 years experience to make sure you're not learning the wrong things. Because I got to tell you, it happens all the time. People practice and they practice the wrong way, then they get bad habits. So practice, perfect practice makes perfect. Practice makes permanent. So trying to keep that in mind. But Sandy, I definitely recommend Toastmasters. It's very good for you. Dexter Yuma, how do you use emotional intelligence in front of executives when doing a presentation that sells while addressing the customer's business needs? Dexter, if you're emotionally intelligent, when you walk in that room, you'll be able to look everyone and feel them. You will be able to see who's happy, who's stressed. You'll be able to read whose body language is closed and how to open it up. You will be able to look at the person and see when they get the message, know when to change your tune. You will listen keenly when each of the members say, if they say, I see what you mean, you're going to know their visual and you're going to communicate in terms like, picture this. If somebody says, I hear you, you're going to take that in your head and you're going to say, oh, they're an auditory person. But, you know, emotional intelligence is something that takes a long time to learn. In fact, we start training it at week 1. We actually start with the non-tech before the tech for this reason. Because, you know, emotional intelligence takes time. You have to learn how to read people. You have to learn how to read your emotions. You have to learn how to control your emotions. You have to learn how to control other people's emotions. So when you're giving the presentation, if you walk in there and everybody's not happy, you got to do something to just kick it off and get everybody excited. And when you're looking at them and they're getting bored or they're tired, as an emotionally intelligent person, you're going to figure out what it takes to excite them. And you're going to do this by your interactions and you're viewing them. So this is one of those things that I can't necessarily teach in 5 minutes because I've studied for, honestly, I think I've been training in emotional intelligence for more than a quarter of a century. I started learning emotional intelligence, you know, when I practiced medicine. In school, they say you're going to have to talk to your patient. They called it therapeutic communication. How do you ask someone about their pain? How do you talk to them? How do you tell somebody they have cancer? How do you tell someone they're dying? How do you tell someone they just lost a family member? So that's where I started my emotional intelligence training. But after that, I spent about $250,000, but it was also partially funded by Cisco and other organizations with my training. But here's the key. If you're emotionally intelligent, you're going to see that customer, you're going to feel them, you're going to know exactly what to do, and you're going to have to know how to control those emotions. And we teach that in that program. And if you're not with our program, Goldman has some training that's out there on there. And there's some very good emotional intelligence training programs out there for $5,000 to $15,000. And again, I highly recommend it, or you could just take ours. But seriously important for your career. Definitely worth doing some training in. Chris, you want to bring in the next one? Where do you start in learning sales skills and best practices? Vasil, great question. So, first, you probably should get some training like we provide. But if you don't have the training, here's what sales is, Vasil. You got to remember, I'm not trying to turn people into car salespeople where you walk in there and you're just trying to fill seats. That's not sales. I mean, it is sales, but it's not the kind of sales we're talking about. What is sales? Solving customer problems. That's it. That is sales. So if you can interact with the customer and you can hear about their business, and if they tell you about their challenges, and you can quantify those challenges, and then you can design something, and then you can take the expected value of your solution, meaning if you think it's a 75% chance that it's going to be successful, multiply that by the expected outcome. Now you've got the expected value of your opportunity, of your tech opportunity. And now what you need to do is go back and compare the cost of the problem with the cost of the solution. So if you have a $1 million problem and I deliver you a $2 million solution, I am a horrible cloud architect. If you have a $10 million problem and I offer you a $3 million solution, and $3 million will solve your $10 million, I am a good cloud architect. Now, Vasil, how hard is it to sell that? So what do you really start learning sales? First, you have to learn how to be emotionally intelligent. Because if you're not emotionally intelligent, you won't connect with your customer. Then it's about your sales skills. Then it's about your body language skills and reading people. Because you got to know what your customer's thinking even before they say it. Then it's about learning how to ask the right questions. Then it's about asking the right questions and knowing how to listen. Knowing how to take down the right information. How to then ask more open-ended questions. See, Vasil, the key to sales is you've got to have access to the best information. You effectively need to be a spy, like James Bond or a CIA agent, MI6 agent. You got to go in there and interrogate. And Vasil, we've got a list of 150 questions that the cloud architect should ask their customer inside of our class. So there's a list of questions that are first you have to ask. Then once you know what they need, now are you in a position to do something about it? So now you make your design. Part of your design includes a presentation. In the presentation, you should be persuading your customer about why it's the right solution. There will be a document that explains it. There should be an ROI model that you did, which shows that the expected value of your solution is much greater to the customer than the cost. There will be documents. There will be meetings. So that's kind of those things. So do you need to learn negotiation skills? Yes, and it's part of our training program. Do you need to master presentation skills? Yes. Do you need to master the consulting approach of asking the right questions? Absolutely. Is it related to writing and presenting skills? Yes. Your documents should have words and sentences, typically speaking, of less than 11 words. They should have no jargon. They should have no buzzwords, and they need to tie directly back to the business. Then your solution should be presented as solution and substantiating evidence. And you should be able to package this into a 2-page document for the executive teams, maybe a 20-page document for the management team, and maybe even a 200-page document for the technical team. And you're going to be designing all of that. So sales is about identifying customer requirements and solving them. And the cost of your solution always must be less than the cost of the problem. These are the typical sales skills. And, if you've got good business acumen and good executive presence and good emotional intelligence, you're going to be naturally good because those are your sales skills. And whether you're a doctor saying, Mr. Patient, Mrs. Patient, you need to take this pill. Whether the architect's saying, customer, I think you should do this. Or whether you go back to your customer and say, Mr. Manager, I need you to borrow your 10 people. So you want to go borrow 10 people from another manager of still working in your company. You can't just go to the manager and say, I need you 10 people. And he's going to say, why? And you say, I got a big project. And he's going to say, what's the big project? And that manager is going to be concerned about his future or her future. Because if the manager gives you their employee, their work's not getting done. So then that manager needs to justify to their manager and their manager's manager and their manager's manager that they're going to pay somebody that's not working on their team. And how are you going to do that? You're going to have to prove that the value of the opportunity is greater than the value that is lost by the people. So whether it's the opportunity cost of if you invest your money here, you can't invest it here, or the time cost, opportunity cost, if you put your time here, you can't put it here. Those are the things that we need to do. So those are the things that we need to talk about, Vasil. So I'll probably do some more sales skills, but I know we could try and keep a lot of those extreme leadership skills directly in our programs. But I'll make another sales video coming very soon. I think it's a good plan, and I think it should be done. So I'll do that. But we also made something on sales, I believe, on our channel. Chris from my team could pop it in there, but we can do much, much more to that. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Sahil Gupta, unable to think of projects of cloud computing as a beginner. Any suggestions on this? Well, Sahil, I'm never really one much for just doing stuff without knowing why. Because as a rule, we architect something to solve a problem. Now, having said that, you want to learn cloud computing as a beginner. Any suggestions? Yes, I have a great suggestion. There's about 50 labs that we like to do that give people some basics. So the first thing that I would do is this. I would learn networking, because all these projects that you want to do, if you don't know how any of it works, it doesn't matter. So I would learn networking. Then I would learn the data center too, because if you don't know what is the tech, knowing how to configure it is irrelevant. So I would learn the data center tech, server virtualization, containers, firewalls, Linux, all that kind of stuff. So what I'd probably do is, if I'm new, first thing that I would do is I would switch my everyday computer to Linux, either Red Hat, CentOS, Ubuntu, whatever, and then use it every day. Next, after that, I would learn some networking, maybe the CCNA level. That's to give you a good basic knowledge of networking. Then after that, what I'd probably do is I'd set up server virtualization. I'd build some containers. I'd build an IP tables firewall. I'd build the VPN concentrator. I would set up an Active Directory server. And I honestly would, if you can afford it, if you can get a server that's got, say, 16 cores and 128 gigs of RAM, I would build my own cloud. All my students build a cloud, and that's why I have the Cloud Architect Experience program, which I don't talk about that much, but it's only so people can just build their clouds if they can't afford servers. So I think that's really important. Then we are going to be releasing a book completely free. Chris, do you want to put the link to that page, to that book? In this book, Sahil, what we're going to do is we're going to have the following. We're going to take you from ground zero all the way to the knowledge of the Certified Solution Architect Professional, and we've got about 50 lab projects in there for you to do. Things such as setting up web servers, things such as setting up databases, things such as setting up load balancers, things such as setting up firewalls, all of it. So there's two things you can do right now. Right now, you can download our completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate book. Chris, could you pop the link to our Certified Solution Architect Associate book? Then, Chris, please pop the link to the new future upcoming Certified Solution Architect Professional book. I'd like everybody that's here to have access to that book. It's going to be a really, really, really good book, and we're giving it away completely free. So I don't want anybody to lose out on that opportunity. So make sure that they can get the free ebook. You popped it there. The associate ebook we have will actually have some good cloud projects for you to start working on right now, Sahil. And then wait in 2 weeks. This book is going to be really out there, and it's going to cover really all the technical components, and it's going to be completely free. About 30 of us worked on putting this book together. Everybody from people with PhDs all the way down to people that had done some cabling. So I've got every perspective from every engineer or architect you can imagine putting this together, and we're real excited about it. It's completely free. So please sign up for that book. And in the meantime, do some labs. But build a web server. Set up DNS and deal with a couple web servers. Set up some load balancers. Build some databases. That's a good place to start. Set up some networking. Set up some file sharing services. Start to play. That's where I would start. So get those list of labs in my book. It's completely free. And then get that next book in 2 weeks, and you're there. But build some web servers. Build some websites. Play with some load balancers. Set up some DNS. Set up some servers. Maybe set up a server message block share. set up an Active Directory server, build a firewall, set up anything you could possibly imagine, set up some buckets and object storage, set up some block storage volumes, mount them to an instance, those kind of things, get good at it. Set up a container, whether you're setting up in a data center, play with that. But definitely switch your main computer to Linux and use Linux every day for your main computer. That's a great way to get some hands-on experience. Apologies for the runny eyes. I have a little bit of a fever. I've got some kind of cold flu going on, but I'm super excited to be with you here today. So if the red eyes or they look a little watery, just a little bit under the weather, but I'll be better soon. And I'm super excited to be with you here either way. So Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. What are some books you recommend for beginners for cloud architecture? Ooh, that's a really good question. So, there's not a lot of good stuff out there for cloud architecture. So what I typically recommend is for the networking side, I like the Internet Routing Architectures book from Bassam Halabi. I like the Stevens TCP/IP book, and I like Routing TCP/IP Volumes 1 and 2 by Jeff Doyle. I really like that. Now, that gets you the networking piece. I would then get, some Red Hat knowledge, some Red Hat documentation on Linux, which I think is really good. I would go to VMware, and for free, I would pull information on virtualization. I figure you get about 1,000 pages between VMware, KVM, and QEMU. That's going to give you your solid information, Michael, and it's all going to be free. Then after that, I would go to F5 and learn all about load balancers. A couple hundred pages, again, it's free. Then after that, I would go to F5 and learn about DNS, plus I would also read the DNS RFCs. Then I would deal with containers. I would go to Docker. I would go to Kubernetes. I would go to Red Hat OpenShift, and I would learn about how all that stuff works. I would go to Microsoft and learn about Active Directory. I would look into radio servers. I would go to Cisco to learn about to learn, and I would learn about NAT from Cisco. That's not covered in those 4 books that I mentioned. I would learn about switching from Cisco. That's not covered in there. So you can go to the Cisco website, learn about spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, etc. I would learn about VLAN tagging and trunking. Again, you can get all that from the Cisco website for free. And then I would learn, and then I would, what else did we not cover? So we covered, go for firewalls, go to Cisco's page, Palo Alto's page, Fortinet's page, and Checkpoint's page. You can learn about firewalls and IDS systems from them. And that'll pretty much cover you. Go to Microsoft, learn about Active Directory. Then I would learn about OpenStack clouds and Nutanix clouds. Again, you can read them, and then I would go build one. So, those are where you get the reading materials to be a cloud architect. Note, there's not much out there for the cloud. And what's out there is honestly horrible. That's why we're writing our own books. Look, we're not in the certification business. That's not what I do. I get people hired. I have no interest in certifications other than to get people an interview. I get people hired. Why do we make the certification training materials? Why are we doing it? We have no choice. Well, about 9 months ago, or about a year ago, a good friend of mine said, Mike, he said, you set up this blockchain data center, and it's amazing. He said, you brought 3 of your interns in a weekend. You set up many thousands of servers and almost 500 GPUs. And I said, yes. And he said, could you teach my kid? And I said, sure. So here's what happened. I told this friend of mine, I said, I will teach your son for 2 to 4 hours a week on Friday, but I'm kind of busy right now with this blockchain thing. So I only have 2 to 4 hours. I'm going to buy him the 3 best-selling solution architect courses, and I'll coach him 2 to 4 hours on Friday. I got to tell you, I was horrified. 2 days later, this nice young man calls me and he says, guess what, Mike? And I bought him the 3 best-selling course providers. And you see them every day on LinkedIn commenting on, so every time somebody made it, we have to passes a certification. And the kid called me after 3 days and he says, guess what, Mike? I've set up an S3 bucket and an EC2 instance, but what is it? And I said, what do you mean, what is it? He said, what is an EC2 instance? And I said, what do you mean? It's a virtual machine. He said, what's that? And then I honestly watched these 3 certification courses, and no one even explained what a virtual machine, with no knowledge whatsoever. It was just the name of the service and how to configure it. I was so horrified that I then interviewed 1,000 graduates of these programs. Not a single one was hireable. They were all certified, but not hireable. I was so offended and so upset by this that we decided to make a book. Passing the Certified Solution Architect Professional, I stripped out 10 pages out of it and I gave it for free as the Certified Solution Architect Associate. We then started working with this nice group in the Cameroon, and we started giving away free certification training, and that's why we have free Certified Solution Architect training and free AWS Advanced Networking training. And you know what we're going to do very soon? Some free Cisco training for the networking. You know what we'll do after that? We'll probably use some Azure training. So we're going to do everything to keep you guys done and keep you guys solid. So you don't ever have to get any of those horrible certification materials that are basically the name of the service and how to configure it. Because I don't want to see you spend 6 months of your life learning something and then never be hired. I want you hired. It matters to me. It matters. When I started my career, I spent $20,000 on certification training. And you know what? None of it got me hired. You know what it did? When I learned the right skills. So that's why this is really, really important to me. And I'm going to help you guys get hired. So that's why we do what we do. So, Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Rohit, how do solution architects back their designs before presenting it? Typically speaking, Rohit, we have a team of cloud engineers that does a proof of concept for us. That's how we typically do it. That's how I've done it throughout my entire life. When I was an engineer, I tested my own things, but the second I became an architect, I never did another proof of concept test. In fact, it's really interesting. The second I actually became an architect, it was the last time I ever touched the tech. Now, have I designed it? Yes. Have I gotten involved in designs that no one in the world has ever done before? All the time. Have I gotten involved in the designs that take 50 plus engineers a year to even baseline the systems? Yeah. But I don't configure because I'm an architect. So that's how architects test their designs. They give it to a team of cloud engineers, and the cloud engineers do the testing for them. Sometimes DevOps engineers do it because they can automate it all, pretty quickly with the cloud formation template, which they used to use, not anymore now. But otherwise, this is how these do things. So architects aren't a one-person show, and that's where everything is doing it. It's a team sport. So when I practiced internal medicine, here's what I did. A patient came in. If they had a diabetic, I'd send them to an endocrinologist. If they had a high blood pressure, I'd send them to a cardiologist. If they had thumb pain, I'd send them to a rheumatologist. If they fell, I'd send them to an orthopedic surgeon. I'd always send them to the right people, the experts. That's what we do as an architect. This is a team sport. A good architect is really just a facilitator and a coordinator. That's why so much of this is soft skills and emotional intelligence. We are not the configurers. We are not the builders. We are the solution designers. We are the problem solvers. We are the business executives that start with the customer. This is why we're so different. We are not engineers. We are not super technical people. We are leaders. We are executives. We are business transformation specialists. Digital transformation specialists is the best term. That's why we are not just engineers. And those people that train for engineering will never be cloud architects. And it's not because they're not as smart. They might be smarter. It's not because they're not as capable. They might be more capable. But if you need to hire a chef, you need to hire someone that knows how to cook. And that chef may not be a great auto mechanic, but I don't care if my chef is good at fixing my car. I care if my chef, and I don't have a chef, but I care if my chef can cook for me. I care that the person that fixes my car can fix my car. I care that my architect can design it. If I'm going to hire an architect to design a hotel, same concept. I don't expect that architect to be the person that goes to the store and buys the bricks and cements them together. I expect them to design it. And that architect doesn't design a 1,000-meter tall building on their own. They have structural engineers. They have glass people. They have everybody. And we're the same thing. This is not a one-person job. This is a leadership job that brings and ties the pieces from a lot of places. That's really the key. That's the key. So, that's why we do what we do. Hope that answered your question. And please, Chris, bring in the next question. We're getting some really good questions today, so I'll go as long as people have questions, as long as we can anyway. Melissa, so good to see you. Definitely cloud hired. It's always, always, always wonderful to see you, Melissa. Sean T., you've recently joined our program, and you can't speak highly enough about it. Thank you so much. Could you please elaborate on how AWS Gateway with WAF can help support DDoS? So, DDoS protection, Sean, and I'm not going to go into this because I don't think that's going to solve your problem. DDoS protection is layered. So a couple of things. For one thing, in most of my design, Sean T, I don't use WAF. WAF is a totally perfect firewall for a small organization. It's fine. Most of my customers demand higher performance security systems that come from the marketplace. It's almost everybody I've ever worked with has needed a Cisco device, a Palo Alto device, a Fortinet device, a Checkpoint device, or one of those devices from Cisco, Palo Alto, Fortinet, Checkpoint, Cisco. So Those are the firewalls that I use. And I typically use a network load balancer or a gateway load balancer to load balance them. So here's the thing. DDoS protection takes a lot. And it's not just one thing. You typically connect to a content delivery network, and the content delivery network really helps with DDoS protection because it only forwards legitimate requests to the servers. And it terminates the SSL, which is CPU computationally expensive. And so it's going to terminate the connections. It's going to stop that. But also, any illegitimate request, like a ping of death or a bunch of TCP sins or anything that can attack, the CDN and the DDoS protection blocks it. Now, behind that, you have a firewall. Now, I'm probably not going to use WAF. I'm going to use something much more industrial. This firewall blocks all incoming traffic, except for what we allow through, which is nothing. So the firewall is going to block everything. The firewall is like having a 1,000-foot wall around your castle. And if we're dealing with a regular firewall, that's the step. It blocks everything. It allows my traffic to go out to the internet and allows it to come back, but it blocks all new things in. So that's the firewall. Now, next. After the firewall, if we have a next generation firewall, it has what's called intrusion detection, intrusion prevention capabilities. But let's assume we're not. So typically speaking, first we have some DDoS, then we have a firewall. The firewall basically is like a wall around the castle. Then in the event somebody climbs the wall and gets over the castle, castles typically have a moat, like it's this area that's filled with water and it maybe has sharks and alligators in there to eat the people that fall over the wall. So that's your intrusion detection, intrusion prevention system. And then after that, you're going to use access control list, network access control list. Then after that, you're going to use security groups. Then after that, on the host, you'll enable auto scaling. And here's why you'll enable it. Well, actually, auto scaling. And the reason is let's say your web server could say handle 5,000 requests per second per server. And let's say you're getting DDoS with 20,000 requests per second. If you have auto scaling and you scale out 10 servers, you'll be able to handle 50,000 requests when the DDoS attack is only 20,000 requests. So auto scaling is going to help you. But on those servers, you're going to disable unnecessary services. You're going to put some anti-malware protection. You're going to lock down the ports. You're going to patch it. So, that's going to go in there. And of course, you're still going to add a strong identity and access management protocol. And then you'll encrypt your data. So these are the components that go into a DDoS protection. The, hey, WAF and Shield, that's just, that's certification, but it's not reality. So I hope I answered your question there. And I know we did some security in yesterday's design, and we'll do a lot more security in Friday's design this week, assuming my flu gets better by then, and I'm pretty sure it is because, today I'm able to sit in a chair, so I'm all kinds of excited. So, Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. EWB, in my experience working with the banking industry, what percentage was hybrid, which meant to stay on premise? All of it's hybrid. You will never find a bank that's ever going to go pure cloud, I don't think. And the reality is, I don't think anybody should be pure cloud in the most part. Almost everything's going to be hybrid. And here's why. What we're trying to do now is nothing can perform as well as the network and the data center. I'm going to say this again. The cloud is not as good as the traditional network and data center in terms of performance. And it can't be, and I'll explain to you why. But what does the cloud provide that's worth it? And a level of agility that no one else can do in the world, which makes the cloud transformational. Which means the cloud is disruptive technology that can make the business better. So EWB, I want you to think about this. Let's say it takes 2 milliseconds or 2,000ths of a second for me to reach the AWS environment and 2 milliseconds to come back. So I just want you to think about that just for 1 second. 2 milliseconds. Or to reach AWS and 2 milliseconds to come back. So now let's think about this from a bank. I've got a machine that's going to watch the news and trade. It's going to trade, buy and sell all day long. Buy, sell. Now let's think about the financial industry. If there's news, Mercedes just invented a new self-driving car that can fly through the world. That news breaks. Everybody in the world says, buy Mercedes stock, buy Mercedes stock. As soon as that news hits the world, that price is going to rise of the stock. And as more people buy it, the price rises. So the first person who can buy it on the news wins. So now let's say it takes 2 to 4 milliseconds to get to the AWS environment. Now, let's say you're in your data center and you can do it in a nanosecond, which is a billionth of a second. If a billionth of a second can mean, and it can to a bank, it can mean billions of dollars a year of profitability. Putting that in the cloud would be a disaster because it would cost the bank billions of dollars in lost revenue. So don't do it. Those kind of systems, those heavy-duty systems that need high-performance storage that might have an NVMe RAID array that provides like 10 million IOPS, that you're going to do in your data center. You can't put that in the cloud. The cloud's going to cost it it's going to lose a lot of money in the cloud. The performance isn't good enough. The latency is too big. So what's the next phase? Well, we could stick our stuff in an edge location. Well, they don't call it an edge location. They call it a local zone. But basically, it's edge computing. And what is edge computing? We connect our data center to another data center that's closer than the cloud, which is just another data center. So there's that. But think about running your workloads directly in your data center. So everything's hybrid. Now, the question is, when we're talking about hybrid, are we talking about hybrid cloud, or are we talking about data center to the cloud? Right now, in most cases, what we're talking about is a traditional data center connected to the cloud. But I'm seeing a lot more moves and a lot more desire to go from an OpenStack cloud or a Nutanix cloud in the data center and connect that to the AWS cloud and then connect that to the Azure or the Google cloud as well. About a year ago, 97% of all cloud people using the cloud were all on a single cloud provider. Guess what it is? I'm sorry, it was about a year ago, 30% of all customers were on a single cloud provider. You know what it is now? 3%. So nobody's on a single cloud and everything is hybrid and multi-cloud. So a company like a bank can't afford to be all on the cloud because let's say they have 8 direct connections to the cloud. What if they go down? And not only that, the time it takes to go from the data center to the cloud could be billions of dollars of lost income. And guess what? The cloud doesn't support multicast or broadcast. And a lot of these financial things are multicast. So again, a lot of this stuff can't be done on the cloud. And even if we use the cloud, we've got to use GRE tunneling and lots of things. So the question is, where are the availability of our feeds? Where are our users and what can we do? So in banking, it's a lot of hybrid clouds. You know what you'll also find in banking? Mainframes and other 30 and 40-year-old technology that they can't get rid of because it's got stuff in there. So banking has the most bleeding edge tech, and it's got some really old tech that works really well too, and we're involved in all of it. And that's not going to the cloud any day soon. A lot of it is, but some of it isn't. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Unless I answered them all. So Joki's saying, I really do like your approach compared to other training programs. Cloud Guru, thank you. You concentrate on getting the technical skills, business and learn is what is needed. Do I do one-to-ones? We absolutely do one-to-ones. I try not to do them, and I'm always happy to do them, Mr. Singh. So here's the thing, my time is really, really expensive because I'm pulled in every different direction. We do have one-to-ones available. I try to use my Cloud Architect Career Development Program, and I want you to know why. I'm in the business of getting people hired at the lowest cost possible. So I used to do all one-to-one consulting, and I was really successful in my clients' work, but I had to charge about $400 an hour to do it. And it would take me about 12 to 14 sessions with somebody to get them hired. Now, the reality is, if I did 12 sessions with someone and it cost them $5,000 and I added 6 figures to their annual salary, it was worth it to them. And truth be told, even if it cost somebody $5,000 to get the career of their dreams, it's nothing compared to what colleges cost and universities cost. But, here's the thing. I don't really like taking people's money. I try to basically get people to their goals at the cheapest price possible. So what I do is I like my Cloud Architect Career Development Program because it gives students 2 live classes per week where they can ask questions live. So we're doing live training and then students can ask questions. And then in between classes, our students can answer questions on Slack. And then if students actually want to do one-to-ones outside of that, we give them 1 15-minute one-to-one included in the program. Besides that, we give them 66% off of my one-to-one time. So by doing that, I can actually train someone to be a cloud architect, and I can typically give them 1 to 2 private one-on-one coaching sessions for less than $1,000. And that's the way I prefer to do it because I know I can get my students hired that way at a very cheap price. But we do one-on-ones, and we're more than happy to do it for people that desire that. I'm just always looking for the cheapest way to get my people hired. There's plenty of ways to make money, and I just want to get my people to be as successful as possible. So yes, we do one-on-ones. Chris from my team will post the link on that. You could probably try one of our coupons, and it will definitely work on that as well. And I'd be honored and thrilled to speak with you. I would be honored to. I'm just trying to give you the cheapest way to get to your goals. And whatever it is, whatever you desire, I'm thrilled to work with you. And I definitely do one-to-ones. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. You have a master's degree in IT and an AWS cert. You're currently an IT director. That's good. In the industry, and is a good career path for me to chase a solution architect or continue to climb the ladder? Edward Miller, wow. That's a tough one. And I'm going to tell you, I've struggled with this one my entire career. I have gone from architect to leader, back to architect, back to leader, back to architect, back to leader, back to management consultant, back to leader, back to architect. So I've done it again and again and again. So here's the thing. I love architecture, but I also love leadership, and they're the same. So, a principal architect is a director, and most of these good architects, an enterprise architect is typically a director level position. So, yeah, so you got to do what's going to make you happier. If you're like me, and when you're leading a large group of people, you're like, I kind of miss the tech, then being a cloud architect is a really, really, really great job. I mean, it's really, really great. If you like leading people, you'll be doing it. But when it comes to the actual leadership, there's that too. So you could have looked at it this way. And we add so much leadership on our training program because we want our students to have either option. Because you can go from cloud architect to director to VP to CTO easily. Or you can go from director to VP to CIO or CTO too. The question is where. Now, I will say, depending upon where you actually do your cloud architect work, will be a big factor in your career. So for example, if you're at a big four management consulting firm and you're an architect, think about how many executives you're going to interact with in the course of a week. I mean, you could be having a lot of meetings. And those people that do tend to go to big four consulting firms, they get a lot. They typically, you join them as, say, a partner or a director or a managing director. And not only do you get a good position where you're doing some consulting and you're doing some management and architecture, but you meet a lot of people. So you find a lot of architects like me that basically have, extreme knowledge in the tech, but also extreme knowledge in the business side. We do architecture work and then we take a CIO or CTO job. And that's pretty normal for us, or enterprise architect, which again are VP or director level positions. So, it's got to be what makes you happier. I am 10% happier on the architecture side most of the time. And I'm a bit confused because, occasionally I'll be happy to go practice medicine as a volunteer, which I still do periodically. And at the same time, I like leading large groups. And, these days I spend more time as a CEO than I actually do as a tech person. And, I'm having fun with it. So I say, you got to do what's going to make you happy. And I don't know that. If you miss the tech, boy, this architecture is the best way to marry a management job and a tech job in the same place. You're not getting your hands dirty. You've got lots of freedom. You've got great pay, and it is fun. But you're still leading people, so all the same challenges. So, and if you like the leadership side and you want to climb the ladder, that's fun too. And I love both. I've done both, and I can't tell you which is more fun. Only you know you. But I will tell you, you do much more travel. And if you're a manager, you're typically in the office all day, or at least focusing on just your people. When you're doing this, you've got other things to worry about, and I kind of find it more fun. So I think they're both good, but pick the one that's going to make you happiest. Chris, you want to bring in the next one? Thank you so much, Melissa. I'm feeling better by the minute. Mind the cough and a little bit of red eyes and tearing, but otherwise I'm doing great, Melissa. Thank you so much. Faithy, when does the course start? At an hour for people living in Paris. So the course starts now. So what happens, we do what's called a rolling admission, Faith. And the reason we do this is as follows. Twice per week, we do live architecture training. And architecture training is the same. So let's say yesterday, the team did a video game of the future architect. Like, how would you design the optimal video game company? And on Friday, maybe we'll design a retailer of the future, or a healthcare organization, or whatever we use. So we cycle through about 20 to 40 different architectures that we use, and those same architectures. And that way, every student gets in our program has an experience on it. Now, the second half of this component is the self-study piece, which there's a couple hundred hours of training in our program. Basically, you'll watch a video, You'll turn in a homework assignment and you'll submit it for feedback. And it could be a career plan, it could be a presentation, a technical presentation, anything. And then we'll give you feedback on it. So there's that. So our live classes occur on Tuesdays at 9 a.m., which is 2 p.m. in UK time, and it's 3 p.m. in Central European time. The Friday classes that we teach are at 12 p.m. Eastern time, which is 5 p.m. UK time, and 6 p.m. Central European time. It's been a while since I've been to Paris. I don't remember whether it's on UK time or whether it's on Central European time. So keep that in mind. And the last component of what we have is actually the lab module, where we have students VPN into our data center, and they set up server virtualization containers, firewalls, VPN concentrators. They build, they set up sharing, file sharing, Linux file sharing with NFS, and Windows with Samba, build Active Directory servers, build cloud. So there's that. So typically speaking, regarding these in-person architecture classes, we've got a pretty good group in the class. So what happens is in the beginning, the students are there, they observe, and the more senior students take over, and the more students, the junior students learn. And then as the more senior students get hired, the more junior students move up. And it works this way. It's a complete mentorship program, exactly the way we do it in medicine. So Fathy, if you've got some questions, I'd love to answer them. But no, Paris is fine. We've got lots and lots and lots of people in Europe. Actually, lots of people in Europe, lots of people in the Middle East, lots of people in Africa, lots of people in India, lots of people in Asia, and all over the US and Canada and Mexico and South America. So we'd love to work with you. You do have a lot of French-speaking people, by the way. Well, listen, hi, Mike. Yesterday you were asked if it was still possible to be successful in getting an interview while in your program if they got the GCP. I know you could explain this to me. So here's the thing, Melissa. Why, as a guy like me who's Google certified, who loves Google, recommending you not get that certification? I'll tell you why. When it is your first cloud architect job, first one, you've got some things that you need to do. Now, Melissa, if you've worked in tech for the last 20 years and you've been a network engineer, I'd say go get that Google cert. It's awesome. It's the most accurate, best one in the industry. And here's why. If you've been a network engineer for the last 20 years, you're going to get hired as a cloud architect or a network architect anyway, whether you're certified or not. And the Google certification, in my mind, is the best certification in the world. They actually ask you architecture questions on it. They give you case studies. It's not simply memorizing the name of the service and the configuration command. So I like the exam. Now, here's the problem, Melissa. You haven't worked in tech for 20 years. Neither have most of my students. So now, what do we need? We need a manager that both is willing to hire someone based upon technical competency, emotional intelligence, executive presence, leadership, communication skills, and likability, which I'm going to tell you is about 1 in 3. So assume 50% of the cloud is AWS, which means 50% of all hiring managers are going to be interested in you with an AWS certification. Now let's go back to Google and say 5% of the hiring manager, 5% of the organizations predominantly use Google Cloud, which means that you will have 10 times more hiring managers that are going to be willing to look at you with an AWS certification than with a Google certification. So would I recommend a Google certification to someone that doesn't have a background or experience? No, at all. And here's why. We need as many hiring managers as possible. And we need not just hiring managers. We need hiring managers that are willing to say, I like Melissa so much. Yeah, she's really competent. Oh my God, she knows so much. I don't know how, but she knows so much. She's likable. She presents well. She's emotionally intelligent. She's really has got some presence, but she lacks experience. So with the, if we do AWS, it looks real good. And why does it look real good? We've got 10 times the hiring managers because half of the organizations are on AWS. Guess what? Else with AWS. There's documentations in 1,000,001 YouTube videos, which makes it easier to figure out AWS. So are you less likely to be hired in Google with no experience? Yes. We have 1/10 of the hiring managers that are being willing to hire, and we need to find that 1 out of 3 that's willing to hire someone with no experience based upon attitude, energy level, communication skills, likability factors, and competency, not experience. So we need more managers. So if we go to Google, which has, let's say, 5% market share, now we've only got 1 in 3 managers that are useful. So that's 1.5% of the hiring managers that are good. I don't like those odds for getting hired. Now, if we go deal with Google, AWS, which is 50% of the cloud, which means 50% of all hiring managers are interested. Now we only have 1 in 3. 15% or 20% of the hiring managers are still willing to hire somebody without experience. So we send you on 3 or 4 interviews and you're hired. So with Google, it'll be almost impossible. So that's why we don't recommend the Google cert. Now, for me, I don't need a cert. In fact, I took the Google cert over a weekend to prove that it could be done. In fact, the only reason I took the Google cert is this, and I love the cert. It's a great cert. I said to my partner, I said, look, if my business partner, I said, if our book on the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is good, and if our AWS training is good, we should be able to go take the Google Professional Cloud Architect book with a moment's notice and pass the exam. And my business partner said, why don't you give yourself 2 days of preparation? And I said, okay. So I bought the Cybex book and it arrived from Amazon at my house on like Friday. And I didn't open the book until Saturday at 7 a.m. And I put the book down on Sunday at 7 p.m. And on Monday around 3 p.m., I took the test and passed it. It was the easiest exam I've ever taken in my career, the Google Professional Cloud Architect. Here's the thing. Why was it easy? Because I knew the cloud. But I didn't need a cloud cert. I get 3 to 5 job offers a day. But if I needed to get hired and I lacked experience, I would have the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional or the Azure Expert. It would be one of those two, and I would stay away from Google until I had lots and lots of experience. And then after having lots and lots of experience, do I do the Google certification, which will maybe add 10,000 to my salary, or do I basically focus more on leadership principles, which can add another 100,000 to my salary? So Melissa, it's up to you, but there's lots of business reasons I don't use the Google certification for the average person. Now, I love the Google certification. I think the Google Cloud is an amazing cloud. And I have no issue against anybody taking it. But the problem is I need you guys to be marketable because you guys are not standard cloud architects that are going to be applying for cloud architect or solution architect jobs. And it's going to be a million times easier for me to get you an interview with a certified solution architect professional or Azure expert. Now, mind you, nobody hires you based on a certification, but it does get you an interview. So I need the thing that's going to get you the most interviews so we can get you cloud hired. So Melissa, that's why we don't recommend the Google one. Not that it's not a good certification, and not that we don't like the Google Cloud. We love it. Especially think about all the algorithm experience Google has. Number 1 search engine. Number 2 search engine is YouTube, and they run it all. So if I was going to do any AI ML stuff on the cloud, it would sure be on Google. I would assume they have the best libraries and experience to do it. So all the clouds are important. They're all great, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses. I'm just saying that focus when you need your first job on the things that are your biggest, highest value targets. It's like the sledgehammer versus the fly swatter. Chris, do you want to bring in the next one? Shravan Kumar, for starters, what is the right job? Cloud architect, cloud engineer, cloud DevOps. It's whichever one you need it. So I want to make this clear. There are no entry-level jobs now. None. Here is why. We used to have 1,000,001 entry-level jobs. The entry-level job was the person that you bought the server from Dell. They'd rack it in the rack. They'd screw it in. They'd cable it up. They'd install the operating system. The cloud made all that go away. So what did we have? We had people pulling cables. We don't need that anymore. We had people installing Ubuntu Linux or Red Hat Linux for things. We don't have to do that anymore. We click through buttons on the cloud and it's already done. So getting an entry-level role is really, really hard. So I want you to also think about what's going on. We are in a global recession. We've got high unemployment with high inflation. Stagflation, the term is a really, really bad place to be right now. And, globally right now, we're dealing with extraordinary inflation because the way the financial markets have been propped up with free cash and low interest rates and lots of stimulus, which I'm not saying we don't need, but it's causing extreme inflation and it's causing high unemployment. What do you need in a good economy? Everybody. What do you do in a good economy, Shravan? You hire young people into entry-level roles and you train them to be your leadership future. That's your future, the youth. Now, today's world, I hire an entry-level person. They can't do the job on their own. So I dedicate 1/3 of a $200,000 employee to now monitor and teach that person how to do their job for the next 6 months. Now, right now, we've all done massive layoffs. We can't even find half of the cloud architects we need. We've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of openings for people that can do the job. Now we get an entry-level job. And now we got to dedicate our people that are actually working full-time to teaching the entry-level people. We can't do it in a bad economy. So don't worry. Just don't go for an entry-level job. Get a more senior role. My students do it every day. I never took a help desk job. I took a network engineer job. It was my first job. First job. 20 some years ago. And it paid me basically 6 figures 20 years ago to get my first tech job. 25 years ago, actually. And the reason it did is I focused on being good at it. And I had the soft skills, communication skills, et cetera, et cetera. So here's what you need to do. Figure out which one you want and figure out where your skills are. Here's as follows and why. If you want to be a DevOps engineer, you must know software development first. You should be a good programmer. And assuming you're a good programmer and you learn the DevOps tools, Jenkins, Spinnaker, Chef, there's a million and one code build, all this stuff, and you know it all, now you're a DevOps engineer. And you know what? That is not an easy job to learn. It is a big, big job, but you can do it. Next is the cloud engineer. So when we start having the cloud engineers, these people have to be good at scripters and they have to be experts at building. That's what cloud engineers do. So as a cloud engineer, you're going to have to be an expert at Python. You're going to have to know a little bit about CloudFormation, a lot about Terraform, a lot of being hands-on, all that great stuff. So, that's what engineers do. As an architect, you're going to be a systems designer. I would say it's probably 10% easier to get a cloud engineer role than it would be to get a cloud architect job. But for example, it depends on your background. For me, it would be really challenging to be a cloud engineer. I'd have to study for it for 6 months. For me to become a DevOps engineer as a cloud architect, it would take me years worth of training to get there. So to get in, I would try and avoid the entry-level roles just because they don't really exist right now. I would upskill myself and be better and then just take a more senior role. And as a bonus, you won't have to start at the bottom and work your way up. So just be a little better. So it's real hard to get hired now. So if you got a lot of time, focus on being the best. And that's what I would do. So I would say your cloud engineering roles are probably your easiest. Your next role above that, I don't know whether it's easier to get a cloud architect job or a DevOps out. It's easy for me to get people cloud architect jobs because I'm good at it and I do it all day long. But, the reality is as follows. You got to be prepared for the job. So make sure you're prepared for it. That's going to determine it. Do you have the skills for the job? That's the biggest thing. Are you competent at the job? Do you have the skills? And are you likable? Is your attitude good? You do that, you'll get hired. Okay, and do a couple more questions. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I want to answer the next 2 or 3, and then I will come back real soon. And tomorrow we're going to have the absolute how to get your first cloud architect job webinar. And I got to tell you, I really hope you're there because we'll go into everything in lots and lots of depth. Chris, if you want to bring in the last few questions. Rosu, how long are the trainings? Actually, they're about 3 hours, our live training sessions, Rosu, because we've got a lot to pack into each training session. Now, having said that, we record all training sessions and we upload all training sessions within 24 hours or so of the class. So what'll happen is if you can't make the whole class, you can always go back and watch the replay of the class. But the classes are typically about 3 hours. We really get involved in some deep architectures, and it takes a bunch of us several hours to map them out. And then you don't just design the architectures. I have to have the students present the architectures back to me. So we can build the communication skills, the leadership skills, the design skills, and the sales skills. We have to do it with our students because that's the skills for the job. So hope I answered your question there, Rosu. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Almost exclusively in our career development program, we train our students to either be generic cloud architects, we help them learn infrastructure, or we help them learn security. Every student we have gets CISSP level security knowledge, whether they want to be a security architect or not. You need that knowledge to be a good cloud architect. Every one of our students gets networking knowledge somewhere between the CCNA level and CCNP level, and then every one of our students gets deep cloud knowledge. So regardless of which one of these jobs you actually want, you can get any of them. But we do have a focus program for some people that want to be cloud security versus other people that want to be cloud networking or infrastructure, and we have a different career development plan, and we help the students build the plan. So yes, we work all those positions very well in our programs. Chris, was there another one real quick? Okay, well, I actually think I got through all of the questions. Oh, well, there's one more here. Do I think Oracle will get more of the cloud market share? If so, from whom? Here's what I think. I think you're going to see Microsoft Azure explode in a big way. I think That's who I really see, really, really winning. I also see Google taking some market share from Amazon, but Microsoft does some things that are a little different than Google and Amazon and some of the other big tech companies. Microsoft is a little more business oriented, and Microsoft is a little more generic about what they believe in. So Microsoft Azure, and Microsoft is a really good strategic advisor to businesses. Microsoft has a lot of architects. Microsoft has a business solutions group like the one where I come from, where they're experts at helping an organization achieve better performance through technology. And that's why, Windows, which we don't typically use as servers anymore, that's why Microsoft is so pervasive in every organization. They are so good at helping organizations be more efficient with technology that even if the technology like Windows may not be the most optimal thing in the world, it's still so good for businesses that businesses can't get away from it because it's just so good. So I think you're going to see a lot more Azure, but I think Google's going to be a bigger player. I do think at some point I'll be changing my recommendations for the Google certification. I'm just not there yet. Maybe 3 months from now, maybe 6 months from now. What I do is I monitor situations closely, and I monitor what the recruiters ask me for, and I monitor what hiring managers ask me for. And right now, it's all Amazon and Azure. And I got to tell you, Azure is looking pretty big, and that's where I would be. So I hope I answered your question there. And I think, Chris, because I'm a little under the weather, I would love to do more. Let's call it a day for right now, unless anybody has any last-minute questions. And we look forward to seeing you very soon. But please, everybody, please see the video today on what does a cloud architect do. I can't advise you enough how important that video is and how much I want you guys to do that, because I want you guys to really get hired. I'll be better in a day, but thank you so much. So good to see you, Melissa. Take care, everyone. It was so wonderful to see you, and I will see you all very soon.